Good evening, folks. Now, I know it's not Wednesday, but I'm already back. Hello, it's me, Hannah. Now, something that I've been seeing popping up over my news feed lately for the past few months, for the past few years, cancel culture. Now, recently, cancel culture has been cropping up due to, well, racial tensions in America, to put it lightly. But we've canceled people over far less things, far too many times, in my opinion. But what is cancel culture? What's it about? What are we trying to do with it? According to Urban Dictionary, it's basically the popular practice of withdrawing support for public figures after they've said or done something offensive or objectionable. Now, things I am not going to be referring to when I'm talking about cancel culture: criminals. I am not defending people who break the law and or people who believe that they're above it. On that note, I just want to preface all of this by saying finding the flaws in cancel culture is not the equivalent of defending the actions of people who get quote-unquote canceled. What I suppose, seeking out of all of this is maybe an alternative that benefits everyone better, assuming that, well, that the desired outcome is collective progress. Let's see. Other people I'm not referring to when talking about the banes of cancel culture. People who've proven time and time again that they will choose the path of the morally inept. Those who reject change and self-reflection. And, people who have just committed grave moral indecencies. So, to reiterate, not those people. Anyways, the type of toxic cancel culture I'm referring to is, when people decide to comb through years of backlog to find any mistake. And we're all human. There's bound to be a mistake somewhere. You have these people combing through someone's social media because they're famous, trying to find something so that they can effectively cancel someone. A tool that should primarily be used as a defense against society's eroding moral code is now being weaponized against people, who have a platform. Now, with all of that laid out, let's take a quick music break. Now, although today is Monday, here is Sunday by Groovy Room featuring Hayes and Jay Park. Welcome back. That was Stella Jang's Under Caffeine. Now, going back to the whole cancel culture movement that's been happening. Wave number, 5,000 at this point. There's been too many. People aren't learning. Anyways, yes, people need to be held responsible for their actions. This I completely agree with. What I'd like to question is, where is the point of no return? Who decides? Are people allowed to change and seek redemption? If we can gush over fictional villains who abruptly turn a new leaf, surely we could allow that much room for real living people. Looking at you, Zuko stands. Anyways, I believe that the punishment should fit the crime. Now, do we as individuals hold the right to mete out justice as we see fit? Probably not. But when it's the will of the people, is it right then? Now, see, the answer to that is more complex. 'Cause let's dissect a little bit. Deep dive. You don't really get to see the big picture until you've, analyzed all the details. So, who makes up a cancel culture movement? Well, many people. Some people, of course, with good intentions. But you also have people who are swept in because of the drama and the collective nature of cancel movements, not to mention mob psychology. We like being in groups. That overused phrase that humans are social creatures also applies to the idea that, we like to group ourselves off rather than the idea that we get lonely. Humans might have grown past the I versus we dilemma, but the us versus them hurdle seems to be much higher for some reason. Anyway, so you have the mob. Then you also have people who are just spiteful. Whether they're aware of it or not, these folks are there because now they have an excuse to be mean and malicious. Oh, this person did a bad thing, so I can bully them and harass them to my heart's content. This is acceptable behavior given the parameters of the situation. They're here to take advantage of someone who's been outed as a bad guy, so that they can be, well, mean without consequences. 'Cause it's okay when the other person's a bad guy, isn't it? Questionable. The vigilante type might also be mixed in there. They seem to revel in their brand of so-called justice and appear to instigate things, whether it's by personally sending threatening messages or doxing. Oh, for those of you who may be unfamiliar, doxing is basically when you publicly expose someone's personal information, like posting their address or the names of their family members and where to find them on the internet. So, how do we figure out where to draw the line? Because yes, identifying racists from cell phone videos is definitely helping. It brings awareness and forces people to take responsibility for their actions and be, well, accountable. But when is it too far? Recently, we've seen a slew of cancel movements coming out of YouTube. You have a lot of the OG YouTubers like Jenna Marbles and Shane Dawson, two of the oldest and largest channels, stepping forward and taking accountability for the actions they've perpetuated over a decade ago. You also have people like Paco from Ryan Higa's crew. Now, yes, I completely agree that these people should be taking accountability for their actions. But, and I can't speak for these YouTubers, I don't know them, but when a person genuinely makes strides towards changing for the better, should we annihilate them? I know annihilate sounds like a harsh word to use in this situation, but I think that's what cancel movements have evolved to. We go after people's reputations, livelihoods, family members, etc. A bit over the top at times. And I honestly don't think any of us deserve to threaten other people's lives. That's excessive, in more than one way. But before we get into all of that, let's listen to some more tunes. Here is Dandelion by Woohyo. Now that last one was Black Pearl by Sunmi. So, instead of looking into whether or not cancel culture is inherently good or evil, because I don't think anyone can answer that, and most definitely not me. Now, while it can potentially destroy the lives of the innocent, it does force people to be accountable. Anyways, let's shift our focus to what its byproducts are, because that's something we can see and decide if it's helpful. Now, while the ends may not always justify the means, the end result is still quite a significant factor to consider. What is the overall message that we want to create? What is the message that we end up creating? With outlash like we see in canceling someone, whether it be immediately or years after the fact. In some cases, when we cancel someone who has spent time and effort to change, could that potentially be negative? Because it can send out a widespread message to many that even if you make strides to better yourself, if you have committed mistakes in the past, you will still be punished. And this can stunt growth for many who need change and self-improvement if they start to believe that there's no point to it all. Yes, the ill deed, whatever it was, should be punished, and there should be accountability. I just want to note that when a person genuinely betters themselves, the old perpetrator may no longer exist. I know many people would stop me here and say, oh, but the person's still there, it's not like they died. But I just want to say, they're not the same. I believe it was the Greek philosopher Parmenides who stated, no man ever steps into the same river twice. So, what does that mean? Obviously, in a river, all the water, every single molecule of it, is in constant motion, and liquid flows in any which way. So, that is to say, is there ever a point in time when all the molecules in the river are ever in the exact same position twice? The answer is no. There is no way all that water in the river will all be in the same exact place ever again. It's always moving, and therefore it's always different. Same with humans. I like to think that as we see things, as we hear things, as we think things, the person I was 5 seconds ago before I started this spiel of a tangent is not the same person who's sitting here. So if they've changed, should we not cancel them? Perhaps. They should 100% still have to take responsibility for those they've hurt and be accountable for the actions that they have wrought. Because at the end of the day, someone did those things, and someone made a conscious choice to do those things or say those things. Wow, that got dense. Here's some tunes to help y'all wind down. After all, I think I need it too. And when we come back, I guess I don't know, expose myself on how I keep myself accountable. This is 사장님 도박은 재미로 하셔야 합니다 by BB. Those last two were Iffy by Shike and J Park, followed by Rubber by Primary featuring Hyoko. Now, as promised, a little delve into me. Now, usually, I suppose I don't really end up apologizing for things that sometimes people may perceive as being too much. Now, that's usually because I like to think my actions through dozens of times before going through with it, and therefore usually stand by my decision. That being said, I am also a human being, unfortunately, and I mess up as well. However, when it comes to my mistakes and problems, my number one priority is not to hide whatever embarrassing mishap of a mistake I may have committed. I firmly believe that in order to take proper responsibility and be accountable, you shouldn't and you cannot run away from your mistakes. Yeah, it sucks, but taking responsibility means understanding that if something sucks, it's also your fault. Now, if someone were to confront me about a falling out we may have had, or if I potentially hurt someone, I would gladly sit down, have a conversation with them. Sure, things would probably get heated, and it's bound to be uncomfortable. But I'm the one that has to follow through on my actions. Getting defensive and not hearing the other side is cowardice, in my opinion. Yes, I believe it's an act of a coward to actively not want to face your own mistakes. And just because I don't agree with someone's viewpoint on my words or my actions, maybe they misinterpreted where I was coming from. That doesn't make them wrong. That just makes them different from me. You could say the same thing to 5 different people and they could all hear it as 5 different things. Anyways, shout out to anybody who thinks they've been wronged by me. Let's be civil and have a chat. If you don't want to, that is also very cool. Remember, kids, it's not up to the perp to decide whether or not the victim should be hurt. If your words hurt someone, that is ultimately your fault. Sure, you might want to be like, oh, but they didn't have to take it that way. Yeah, but you also didn't have to say it. Owning up to your words and actions means that you're willing to accept whatever consequences may happen. Sometimes people just won't understand where you're coming from, or maybe it comes off the wrong way compared to what you had thought it would sound like. Either way, that's on you. I take things that I've said and done in stride. The easiest thing. It's very easy to deflect and to get defensive, but I don't think that's right. Now, speaking of shoutouts, we have a song request from one Andrea from Queens. Here is Jasmine by DPR Live. Welcome back. Those last two were Zico's Wensu and Attraction by Bumkey. Now, let's stop talking about me and talk about change. So, how do we know if people really do change? Aren't people always the same? That innate nature? The whole nurture versus nature argument? Well, in my opinion, if all things constant, yes, then people don't change. But that doesn't mean that someone can't make the effort to. I also want to highlight that I haven't been saying that we should not punish oldies. Not what I've been saying. Just that when we call someone out and highlight certain things, there has to be context and substance. To quote the age-old adage, which I heard on the Boondocks, brownie points if you've watched that show, the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Now, what on God's green earth does that mean? Basically, just because we, the outsiders, can't see someone changing and growing as a person doesn't necessarily mean that they're not. I mean, just because I can't see the curvature of the earth on the horizon does not mean that the earth is flat. That meme is dead. Please stop beating the dead horse. Well, in this case, meme. Anywho. Yes, of course we want bad things to happen to bad people. That's why we watch the same cut and paste superhero movies with different characters for 20 years. All shade, all tea. We love the idea of justice and instant publicly visible karma. Of course, there are things that we, the collective, find irredeemable and inexcusable. But I'm going to reiterate once again, the punishment must fit the crime. If someone robbed a grocery store 15 years ago, should the people of the internet rise up and threaten their family and destroy their lives? No, we're not vigilantes. We can't all be the Batman. This hypothetical person should go to jail and atone for their crimes, pay for damages. And yes, there is many a time when justice isn't meted out properly due to the inadequacies built into the system. But that doesn't automatically make us judge, jury, and executioner. Now, a lot of people think that self-improvement comes from focusing on what they can start doing. I can start going to therapy. I can start being nicer to people. But honestly, I would say that is like the beginning half of it. It's a lot easier to start doing something good than to look deep within ourselves and figure out what we're doing wrong. It's a lot to properly self-reflect and look for the ugliest, meanest parts of ourselves. And then to turn around and ask ourselves why it is that we do that. It's a difficult but necessary step. And honestly, that kind of deeper level change that's not just on the surface, it takes time and constant vigilant effort. And yes, sometimes we want to act the same way when someone's being problematic. But you can't put out fire with fire, so obviously hate doesn't solve hate. Now, I'm not going to get all soft and mushy and say only love can solve hate, because that's not true either. Only the optimistic idealists believe that. But the world isn't black and white, it's gray. And if it looks like there's only two options, make a third one. Make it better. Whew, that was dense. It appears I have an affinity for ranting. Anyways, here is a song I found solely because I heard that the music video had a surprising twist at the end. It did. I definitely recommend the watch. So, let's unwind and slow down a bit with Hogak's 흔한 이별, or the English title, Empty Words. That was Honu Jongha's 구애, or Propose. Now, welcome back to those of you who decided to stick by me while I had that whole long-winded speech. It appears I let my ideas get the best of me. Anyways, let's discuss something a bit more lighthearted as we unwind for the night. Another list of quarantine activities. Now, while those of you still in the DOE's clutches may have heard, Mayor de Blasio mentioned that schools will open in September for the New York City area, ultimately, it is technically up to the state to decide whether or not we're going to open schools when it comes to a pandemic. So that means we will all have to wait and see what Governor Cuomo has to say. Now, in case you've used up all your indoor activity ideas for the past 4 months, have watched everything there is to watch on the internet, or in the unfortunate case that we will have to hole up again in the fall due to a potential second wave, because if y'all don't remember the Spanish flu because you weren't alive in 1918, first of all, same. Secondly, it was the second wave that claimed the most lives, not the first or the third. You really think that humans would have the capability to learn or at least remember something catastrophic that happened in a few months? Anyways, here's to hoping that we don't repeat that, although I have been seeing people wear their masks under their nose. Please stop doing that. It's a mask for all of your breathing area, not just your mouth. Anyways, Here are some of the 10,000 ways I've kept myself busy. You know, when I wasn't binge watching Netflix series and every video that the YouTube algorithm fed me. I think I changed hobbies at least once or twice a week. It was very interesting. But the biggest thing I ended up following through on was making things instead of buying them. Now, I don't know about you, but being a college student meant I was broke. So, did I have money to buy nice candles that wouldn't cause cancer? Absolutely not. And also, for those of you who think you're safe because you buy name brand candles, think again. Carcinogens. They're everywhere. Anyways, it's a lot cheaper to just buy the raw ingredients and make them at home, which was surprising because I did factor in the labor cost as well. I wasn't an accounting major for 2 years for nothing, after all. Anyways, it just all really goes to show how underappreciated WikiHow articles are. I think for like the price of 2 normal 3-wick candles, I've made like 7, and I still have more than half my wax. It's insane. Speaking of making things cheaper than what you buy them for in store, I made perfume. Did you know you could do that? Essential oils and coconut oil. Just mix it up and blam, you got scent. Also, coconut oil. Surprisingly versatile when it comes to any beauty product, really. Plus, you can cook with it, which I don't necessarily recommend doing frequently. It has saturated fats. Anyways, now I don't need to buy face lotions, hair masks, body cream. 1 tub of coconut oil and I'm good. I think I got like a tub for $15 online. It's still going strong. This quarantine honestly has really just been me trying to pinch pennies. Not necessarily a bad thing in my opinion. Speaking of pinching pennies, I wanted to mention private taxi companies. Because, let's be real, none of us are going to hail a yellow cab. Why would we? But being the youngin' that I am, I too was sucked into the world of, well, Uber, Lyft, all those taxi apps that ask for my location. Went on for a short while, but honestly, those prices were terrible. I heard when the apps were first unveiled, like it was pretty decent fare pricing. However, the other day I realized Korean taxis are so much cheaper. What was it? I believe a trip that would have cost me $19 was $12. Yes, it's all cash and you have to call them instead of hitting a button on your phone. But even I, someone who doesn't like making calls for a dentist appointment, which I should probably get around to now that I'm thinking about it, was able to do it. It was super easy. The call probably lasted like 10 seconds. So, yeah, save $1. Say no to corporate America. Support your local community and your local businesses. I mean, there are many other reasons to say no to corporate America, but we're not getting into that tonight. Now, before I get into the 5,000 other things I tried during quarantine, because classes were optional at this point. It was pass or no credit. Before I get into all that, let's listen to the Black Skirts' Everything. Welcome back. Now, to go back into the list of 5,000 different things I've done during quarantine that were not homework, let's see. I got into tea for a while. I will admit, I think I was heavily influenced by watching Avatar: The Last Airbender and seeing Uncle Iroh obsessing over tea again for I don't know how many times it's been now. But I did get into different teas. I realized that bagged tea, not great for you, surprisingly. And you can also just blend tea leaves together and make something new. I always wondered what that default tea they served you at dim sum was, 'cause I've tried many different types of tea, and I couldn't peg just one flavor. Then I realized if you blend oolong and jasmine, you get this nice, warm, enveloping blend of tea that's not too bitter and honestly not too rich. Nice to drink hot or cold. It's great. Now, I haven't only been mixing drinks. I've also cooked, like actual meals, buying groceries. Can you believe that? A whole Zoomer going out to buy their own groceries. Fascinating. But it has been fun to experiment trying to cook in the kitchen, be an adult for once in my life. Takeout is so convenient, but I'm not made of money, and I can't work right now, so that means I can't order takeout every other day. Also, it gets very expensive. Someone explained to me why there is a service fee and a delivery fee. I know, it's to keep the servers running, but honestly, I think that they overvalue their servers. I've also tried calligraphy for a while, not the English version. The kind where you get the ink and you grind it against the stone, and then you take your brush and you dip it, and then you write like the Chinese characters. Pretty fun, very calming. Honestly, I think it did more for me than meditating and yoga ever did. I only did those things once. It wasn't terrible, it's just not my thing. I've been reading books that have not been assigned by a professor for the first time in, I think, since I entered college. Honestly, having graduated, it's very liberating. But yes, I've been reading books. Something that piqued my interest recently was On Tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. Now, the reason that I got into this book at all was because I saw this video of Jane Elliott recommending it on my Instagram. Now, for those of you who don't know Jane Elliott, she is an American diversity educator. She was a school teacher who became infamous for her blue eyes, brown eyes experiment. While she is a white woman, she seems to have a firm grasp on the fact that everyone is discriminatory. We all have prejudices and biases. That doesn't make us evil or villains. It just means we have things that we need to unlearn. She recognized this, and she sought out to do an experiment where she took a bunch of third graders, told them, oh, if you have brown eyes, you're just inherently smarter, more well-behaved, and honestly just a better human being. And these kids ate it up like candy. At recess, they were segregating themselves, bullying children with blue or green eyes because someone told them that they're better. And in their minds, that meant they can do whatever they want to people who are not equal. For those of you who haven't, I definitely recommend watching the entire video of her experiment from, I think it was the 60s. It's fascinating seeing little kids who just yesterday were all friends. Introducing this one variable changed everything. And people say race doesn't have an effect on Americans. Hogwash. But yes, she recommended this book, and it's been an interesting read. It definitely takes the lessons that we should be learning from history and condenses them into basically 20 bullet points. It's a very small book. I love it when a book fits into the palm of my hand. And for those of you who don't care about educational reading, I've also been reading normal novels. It's been quite a minute since I've read something for the plot and not to learn. I've missed this, honestly. For those of you who like to read when you were like in elementary school, and then you hit college and suddenly you can't pick up a book, I feel you. You're seen. One novel I've recently started, How to Set a Fire and Why by Jessie Ball. I'm still not 100% sure because I haven't tested my theory out yet, but I am 70% sure that the spine of the book could probably light a match if struck. I think they did that on purpose. It's an interesting book. I like the format more than anything, really. It's kind of written like a journal, but it's fiction. I haven't finished the book, so I can't really say if I recommend it or not, but definitely an interesting read. What else have I been doing during quarantine? So much. I cleaned my room, kind of. Rearranged furniture in multiple rooms several times. And I'm going to do it again this weekend probably because I need a change in environment and I'm not going to risk my life to go outside and do that. Also, I know many of you miss summer, miss going out and feeling the sun on your skin and the heat. I honestly can't say I do. I am very bad in heat. I am very bad in crowds. Summer is honestly a nightmare for me. So I don't necessarily miss it. Other things I've done at home. An exercise. I did an exercise twice. There are a surprising amount of videos online to follow along and get the feeling that you're actually working out at a gym with somebody at a free class. It's very entertaining if you want to give it a try. Now, instead of prattling on and on and on about, the 100 other things I've done, because I feel like I've done too many things, honestly. Experimentation. I didn't do it in college. That's a joke, folks. Anyways, I will play you guys a few tunes. Up next, we have Suran's 1 + 1 = 0, featuring Dean, and another request by one Emily from Queens, who asked for a song by Hwasa. So we'll be playing I'm Bad Too by Hwasa, featuring DPR Live. Let's step into my little astrology corner for the week. So, full moon just passed in Capricorn and there was a lunar eclipse. What does that mean? Well, basically, I would like to encourage all of us to consider our goals and aspirations in life, whether or not it fits with who we are. Have our priorities changed? Are we content with where we're at and who we are? Don't be afraid to change things up. You might even feel like certain areas of your life, you're not really sure what to do next. Just look back at who you were last year around this time and who you are today. Reflect, compare, see where you want to head to. On that note, it's never really too late to have a completely fresh start. You might just have an aha moment. And if you have the enthusiasm to carry you through for something new, do it. Follow your ambitions. Anyways, with that little woo-woo corner over, I'd like to play you one more song before I decide to give you my watch list for the week of recommendations. This is Dean's Bonnie and Clyde, and for those of you who don't remember what analog phone sounds like, don't be too surprised at the beginning noises of this track. Here you go. Enjoy! Welcome back now for my weekly prescription of TV shows and movies. For those of you who enjoyed watching Parasite and could do with another Bong Joon-ho movie, I'd like to recommend Okja. It's another masterpiece directed by Bong Joon-ho, which also involves Tilda Swinton kind of being Lindsay Lohan from Parent Trap, but with a plot that revolves around animal cruelty. Don't worry, there isn't anything, too graphic in it. It's not like watching Food Inc., trust me. I watched that when I was, I think, in 5th grade. Another fan favorite by Bong Joon-ho, if you haven't already watched it, Snowpiercer. Who knew that Bong Joon-ho filmed a movie with Song Kang-ho, Octavia Spencer, Tilda Swinton, and Chris Evans, all wrapped up into one post-apocalyptic quasi-utopia movie. It's a masterpiece in my opinion. A lot of strange theories tying it to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I mean, I can see it, but it's kind of a stretch. I definitely recommend the watch. Now, for those of you who are into anime, something I actually recently started watching, despite it being very old, Blue Exorcist. Now, I do have some kind of memory of watching the first episode, I think in high school, but I don't think I ever got that into it. I watched it this week. Not terrible. Fair warning, though. If you are going to watch it, stop watching season 1 at I believe episode 17 or 18, and just go straight into season 2. For some reason, they decided to pull a Black Butler, went off script from the original source material, and then in season 2, they pretended that they never did that, and just followed along as if nothing happened and we don't have memories. Another drama that I've been revisiting, Mr. Sunshine. This is a Netflix original and a period drama. I know some people aren't into that, but this show is great. It has assassination, a dash of romance, a love triangle, square, action, government conspiracies, backstabbers, and some historical fiction that honestly probably happened. But it also gives a lot of insight to when Korea was colonized, seeing how it's basically glossed over when we're learning about world history here in America. A lot happened. A lot of the news articles that they portray are, honestly, based off of real news articles. Certain things in the drama actually did happen exactly the way that they portrayed it. Some of it slightly fiction because, hey, some of these people or their family members might still be alive. We don't want to piss off the wrong people. Anyways, it's a great watch. The cinematography, absolutely stunning. the music, the composition, chef's kiss, beautiful. Even if you're not in it for the history, I definitely recommend it just for the plot itself. Now moving on from well-budgeted TV shows and films, YouTube. YouTube's kind of been a mess. If you aren't invested in watching beauty channels, you might not have heard, but there has been something that my friend has recently described to me as Carmageddon. Apparently some of the biggest beauty names in the community, and I realized also just in the makeup industry, because these people don't just film beauty tutorials, no, they have multi-million-dollar brands. Insanity. But anyways, there's been a lot of drama, people are pointing fingers, and honestly at this point, I don't know who to trust. I mean, sure, people can sit in front of a camera and cry while looking wistfully off screen, saying they're sorry that they completely threw a 19-year-old under the bus for absolutely no reason. But it's things like this that kind of made me want to talk about cancel culture today, because hypothetically speaking, if a fully adult YouTuber is picking fights with a teenager and then saying they were manipulated into doing that publicly, should they be forgiven and just written off scot-free? I don't think so. Because sure, maybe someone was feeding you little white lies off camera. Maybe. It's still questionable. But even if they did, in no world would I publicly and absolutely just try to bash a child who is half my age. That's insane. Especially if that someone's your friend. I'm all for calling out your friends when they do something problematic. We should. We should keep our friends in check. That is what a good friend does. But to elevate that to a public platform and trying to tear someone down and absolutely annihilate their entire lives, that's a little sketchy, if you ask me. Especially if it involves people who may or may not have millions of dollars on the line when it comes to competing markets. Business is a scary world. A lot of people say money is scary. No, it's people. It's people who like money who are scary. Anyways, I don't really know the full tea on what was happening, so I won't speak too deeply on the matter. There's also been Jenna Marbles' entire controversy, which a lot of people are very upset about, but she has made it clear that she hasn't been bullied offline. This is her own choice and her way of taking responsibility for actions she may have committed in the past, no matter how recent or long ago, and her way of trying to atone for people she may have hurt. And that choice is on her. I know a lot of the time, we as the audience feel like we have a say in what these content creators can post or do or upload or how they should behave and react. We don't. Of course they have a responsibility to be proper, decent citizens who are using their platform responsibly to send a good message and not a bad one. But at the end of the day, they are their own person. Their actions warrant whatever response that we give to them, because that, in and of itself, is a choice that we consciously make. It's like I tell myself, it's not my individual responsibility to see to it that people around me are acting grown. I'm not anyone's mother. I hopefully won't be for a while. And it's not up to me. Sure, I can call someone out, but ultimately, wanting to change, that's on them. I can't force someone to be a better person, and I have no interest in trying to. The most you can do is cut out toxic people from your life, or try to explain to people what you think they're doing wrong and why you think it's hurtful. The rest is not on you. Because people aren't clay. We can't just mold them into whatever shape that we find the most pleasing. If we could, life would be so much easier. Anyways, it looks like our time is coming to an end. Tune in again at 10 p.m. for another Wonderful Tonight, and I'll see you next time. Here's to hoping that this pandemic won't be forever, a continual cycle of repeated waves. This is Yoonjeong's Eternal.